Let's talk about the knobheads on LinkedIn.
I think my first viral post was a guy who messaged me, was like, so what's your favourite position?
Oh, God.
And I just put CEO.
Badass move.
I don't have to put up with sexual harassment, so his children can eat.
What would you want people to think when they hear the name Leah Turner?
Good question. What it really fundamentally comes down to is I want to make a positive impact on the world. I don't want to be defined as a tattooed professional or a LinkedIn influencer. 10 years ago, I was off my tits on mushrooms, dancing around on a full moon party on a Thai beach. On any social media, it's really important to take control of your own experience. I always say it's like training a puppy. If you don't train it properly, there will be shit everywhere. There's nothing wrong with paying someone to create your content and write your story. But you can't do that and then claim you're being authentic.
Hello.
Hi.
Leah Turner, thanks for coming on the podcast.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
It's amazing that we've known each other for such a long time, and this is actually the first day where we've actually met in person.
I know, you're a lot taller than I expected.
I get that quite a lot. But I just want to go back, because I think I owe you a thank you, actually. When I started out as a freelancer and decided to leave my job and pursue the world of LinkedIn, one, you're one of the people that I looked at as a profile, your content to learn from. And secondly, I released a ebook, which you very kindly agreed to participate in. And I think a lot of the exposure that I got when I launched my business was through you and your audience. So before we go any further, I'd just like to say thank you. I
didn't realise that had had such an impact. So yeah, that's really lovely to hear. And you're welcome.
You can invoice me later.
You can't afford me yet.
But yeah, we've got a lot of mutual connections, and obviously over the last 2 years, I'd say now, I've been just inspired by your story and everything you've achieved. So the point of this episode is to delve into some of that and get to know you, as well as, you know, the business and the brand and what we see online, but also who you are as a person and the kind of things you've done, achieved and overcome. I'm sure we'll get into some of the nitty gritty of the LinkedIn world for any listeners. But yeah, just let's start at the beginning, kind of at the start of your LinkedIn journey. How did you fall into the world of LinkedIn?
So it was back in 2019, sort of end of summer, beginning of autumn, and I was at the point where I was working insane hours for my business, and I was working for a lot of clients that I didn't really enjoy. Like, they were nice people, but the work wasn't very fulfilling, and I was finding it very draining. And my son was getting older, and his needs, when he was a baby, it was easier to manage. I could work late at night, but the more active he became, more of a toddler he became, I was like, oh my God, I do not have the energy to work late at night because I'm running around after him all day. So I started thinking about when he started school the following year, I wanted to be able to work less hours, so that I could be present for him when he was home from school. But to do that, I needed bigger clients, better paying clients, and less of the bitty work. So I was doing lots of like very, very short projects that took up a lot of extra admin time. And I was like, I want bigger projects, want bigger clients that pay better. And I had no marketing budget because I wasn't earning very much. I was on like minimum wage with the previous business. So I had one of those LinkedIn emails pop in my inbox. Someone has looked at your profile, and I was like, LinkedIn, never really thought of that before. My posts on Facebook always go down well with the people that I know. They find me funny. My Instagram had grown organically. My original like personal Instagram, I was like, I'll have a look on LinkedIn. And I logged in and went, oh God, this is awful. And logged straight back out again. And I think I got another one of those emails a few more weeks later, and I thought, something just said to me, go and have a look. And I had like a logo as my profile photo. Had no real profile filled in, and I started sort of looking about what other people were doing, and I switched my profile up a bit and started commenting on the kind of clients that I wanted to work with, and very quickly started getting clients inquiring about my business, but I wasn't really posting. And then I started posting, and I just did the typical tumbleweed stuff. Like, it got 8 likes from old colleagues and people I went to school with. I was like, oh, this is embarrassing.
I love those people, like the regular supporters.
They don't support me now, though. They don't see my content anymore. They probably muted me for being annoying. So yeah, and I think I'd spoken to a few people and saw people having a little bit of fun on there. And the more I engaged with those people, the more my newsfeed started to change. And I was like, actually, this isn't as stuffy as I thought it was. And then I think I put some like meme up, and it got 25,000 views on it, and I was like, whoa, okay, humor's all right here. Like, I can be funny. Funny is my comfort zone. Like, being silly and a bit goofy, that's where I'm comfortable. I don't want to pretend to be this like perfect corporate professional, because that's not me at all. But if I can be the mum that often goes to school with her leggings on back to front and is clumsy and silly, like that was more comfortable. So I started posting about being a single mum, traveling, my work, funny projects that I'd worked on, and that's where the traction started. And eventually, when COVID kind of affected my transcription business, I was already getting so many leads for my other business, and everyone was asking me, how are you doing this? How are you getting so many followers? How's your content so good? How's it? So I went, oh, COVID's annihilated the vast majority of my clients from my previous business. Maybe this is an opportunity. And I started offering 1 hour training sessions on LinkedIn, and I've pretty much been fully booked ever since then. That was 3 years ago in April.
Oh, that's amazing.
So yeah, it's just grown from there.
And what kind of, when you first posted, were you consciously thinking, I'm going to do something disruptive here?
No.
Were you aware of that?
No, not at all. I didn't even want to show my face. I thought I'm going to get run out of the corporate village. I mean, how many people do you see on LinkedIn, or certainly 3 years ago, do you see on LinkedIn, that got neck tattoos and hand tattoos? I was like, especially women, I was like, I don't belong here, and they're not going to take me seriously. I don't have a proper business. I've just got a little self-employed work from home typing business. It's not a proper business. It obviously was, but that was how I felt. So I didn't think that anybody would take me seriously, and it was never about being disruptive at all. It was just, I don't feel like I belong here, but it's not going to work if I try and do it their way, because it's not me. So if I'm going to do it, I'm going to have fun doing it, because I don't want to do it otherwise. Right? I've got ADHD. If it's not fun, if I don't get the dopamine, I just don't do it. So I just decided, well, if I'm going to do LinkedIn, if I'm going to try and make it work, I've got to make it fun. I've got to just do it by being myself. And if it doesn't work, well, but I'm not going to pretend to be something I'm not.
Yeah.
And that worked.
It's that key word that everyone hates to use, authenticity.
Yeah. Yeah, that one follows me around quite a lot.
But I think what you've done on LinkedIn is just kind of show up as yourself. And I think a lot of young people, especially I speak to, like, I go to unis and speak to students, and when I mention LinkedIn, I literally see the room just go, ugh. Everyone's like, LinkedIn isn't the place for me. It's very dull, corporate, like middle-aged men announcing company updates.
Corporate Collins, as I call them.
Corporate Collins, exactly. But actually, it's a creator platform now. I'd say.
It's massively changed. Yeah, it's massively evolved. COVID really changed things. It accelerated that need for adult interaction, because we couldn't network in person.
Yeah.
So it became a place where people were talking about the struggles of daily life, lockdown, kids, mental health. And it was like that before, but it was much small, like wasn't nearly as prominent. And I think the biggest mistake so many people make is that they think their own newsfeed is the entire sum of LinkedIn. But because they never engage, they're not seeing things that they're interested in. They're seeing things from their old colleagues, people they went to school with years ago, random people that they've connected with from various countries that they're not interested in their content. When they actually start engaging with people that they genuinely are interested in and content that they find beneficial, their whole newsfeed will change. So my newsfeed is full of DE&I people, neurodiversity, Black, LGBT, transgender people talking about women's issues and mental health, that like hugely diverse. There's all sorts of stuff that personally interests me, and I don't see I just bought a new Rolls Royce, or the check out my Rolex, or people are flying on private jet. I don't see that, because it doesn't interest me. I don't engage with it, so I don't see it.
That's such an interesting thing to say, because a lot of people complain about what they see, or give kind of like social media this like blanket statement of it's terrible, it's dull, you know. But you can just completely craft your own newsfeed. You have
to on any social media, it's really important to take control of your own experience. So if there are people that are triggering you in a way that isn't beneficial for your life, you don't have to see that. Maybe you want to have a conversation about why it's triggering you for yourself, but if it's inhibiting how you live your life and how you do business, then maybe you need to unfollow, mute, block, disconnect, whatever it is, and curate your own experience. But you can't just do that. You also have to engage with the stuff that you like. So you have to train your feed. I always say it's like training a puppy. If you don't train it properly, there will be shit everywhere. And that's exactly it. You have to, or like weeding a garden, you want to pull out the weeds and you want to nurture the plants. And that's what you need to do. And you need to do it regularly. It's not just like do it once and that's it. You need to regularly go in and go, why don't I like this? If I don't like this, why don't I just disengage from this person and not have them in my network?
I think that's really good advice. And also I had a bit of a question because we skipped a bit there from when you started posting on LinkedIn, and things just kind of very quickly took off. Were you conscious about how you were going to scale that into a business? Obviously, you had your transcription business before that, but how did that business element come to posting on LinkedIn?
What do you mean in terms of the transcription business?
Yeah, so you had the transcription business, and so you'd run a business before and had experience doing it, and then you started posting on LinkedIn a lot more, and then made that into kind of a second business. So what was that process like?
So the posts I was doing on LinkedIn were getting me transcription clients, a lot of them. So I'd gone from just me working for like doctors and lawyers and building surveyors a lot. They were kind of my prime, a lot of market researchers as well. And I was getting a lot of business from them. And I was like, this is great. Like, all these inbound leads, but I have too much work. So I started taking on other transcribers who were freelance. So I built a team of like 5 of us, and I'd had hundreds, like I'd had over 100 clients in the first 4 months I was on LinkedIn, and my followers there was 10,000 within the first 2 months of actively posting. Within 4 months, I was up to about 25,000. And that was when people started saying, you need to show me how to do this. But when it came to actually posting on LinkedIn, I've always been a writer. I don't think I've ever really been comfortable referring to myself as that up until this point. But writing copy and writing entertaining, emotional, well thought out posts, it doesn't take me long. I don't think I've ever written a post on LinkedIn that's taken me more than 5 or 10 minutes ever.
Wow.
Because the way I write it is how it comes out of my head, from years of practice. But I almost like create these stories in my head. When something happens, I'm like, oh, this will be a great post, because I can phrase it like this, and it's just how my brain works. So the actual creating content, written content, was super easy. I was more uncomfortable sharing images. Didn't want to show my pictures. Like I did have a profile picture, but I didn't really want to show my face because I thought, that's it, credibility gone. Because I've been told my whole life, you'll never get a proper job if you have all those tattoos and you choose to look this way. You'll never get a proper job. So I just kind of internalized that and assumed that I had to kind of be a bit discreet about that on LinkedIn.
So how did you overcome that then?
Someone just said to me, like, do you want to work with people that are going to judge you? I was like, no, you're right, actually, I don't want to work with those people. So I just kind of went, okay, well, this is me. And it got, the first photo got a lot of interaction, loads of people saying, tattoos aren't professional, blah, blah, blah. But also a lot of people saying it doesn't matter. And that made me realise that actually it's making me noticeable. And it's rather than me try and be something that I'm not and hide the fact that I'm covered in tattoos, why not just use it as part of my marketing, and I can be distinctive and memorable because of that. And I think it was the beginning of where my marketing brain sort of switched on, and I started thinking of opportunities and how I could leverage aspects of who I am to turn myself into a brand, if you like. I try not to distinguish between who I am and who the brand is too much, but there are certain aspects of me that are very marketable. Being a single parent, for example, it creates a lot of people feel kind of like they want to take care of me in some ways, or like proud of me for doing it all on my own, and it brings out this kind of nurturing side in people and this empathy, which obviously is a powerful marketing tool. So that's something, rather than pretend that or not talk about it, I was like, well, I may as well talk about it then, because actually it connects really well with people and it inspires other single parents or people in difficult situations. So it was like my brain started spotting the marketable things about me and going, okay, well, I can leverage this and I can use this to my advantage rather than trying to hide it about myself.
I love that. And with, you said writing, like you've always just had a bit of a flair for writing. Is that something that goes way back in like school, college days?
Yeah, I was always good at English, and I devoured books as a kid.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons people didn't spot my ADHD, is because my ADHD hyperfocus was often reading. And, you know, obviously I'm a really good student if I'm reading lots, but I would just lose myself into books for days. I think the most I did was like 30 books in a month I read.
Wow.
When I was in Thailand. Yeah.
What type of books?
All sorts of books. I love crime fiction.
Yeah.
I don't really read too much non-fiction. I like to lose myself in the world of fiction. So it's like crime, gangster novels, fantasy novels. Sometimes it was like war stories, Holocaust sort of survival stories. Like those were non-fiction. I'd love to read about like history. So I would just lose myself in books. But when you immerse yourself in words and phrasing and professional writing, like you can't help but pick a lot of it up, I think. Yeah,
because I think a lot of advice that I see on LinkedIn as well now is to create great content, you have to consume great content. Yeah. And you've also, I think, got to live, like, you've got to live a little to talk about experiences and build that.
Yeah.
You can't just craft a story out of nowhere. What do you think about that?
I think it's more than just consuming good content. You have to notice what's good about it. So yes, you need to consume content, a lot of it, but you need to pay attention to why that piece of content stopped you from scrolling. What was it about that headline that made you go, I need to know the rest of this? How you can replicate it, how you can phrase things, because one of the things I see a lot, especially with like clients, is they'll over explain things. And there's a nuance with LinkedIn content, is that you need to tell the story, but you need to get to the point quickly. Because people on LinkedIn are in a very much a I'm very busy mindset. So if you make them work to get to the end of that story and it feels like an effort, they'll just scroll on to something else. So it's about knowing the exact amount of detail to include without labouring the points and not going off on random tangents. And it's something that you'll notice now that I've said it, and you're probably aware of it anyway, but especially people who are neurodivergent, they're very good at writing without fluff. Very good. They get Ellie Middleton is fantastic at it. Lewis Kemp is absolutely a genius at it. He really gives you the feel for the story and exactly what's happening with just the right amount of adjectives, but he never ever goes on and on like I am probably now. But it's one of those things. It's like getting to that point and phrasing things and not using more words than you need to in your content. And that's a real nuance, I think, of social media in general.
Absolutely. And like you said, especially on LinkedIn, everybody is there for something, right? They either want to learn something quickly, they want someone's help, or they're trying to sell something. So I think that advice you give around getting to the point quickly is absolute gold. And I also say it to our clients as well. Yeah. Like when you send us something, and I'll get an idea from them that'll be like, literally, I've had like 2 A4 pages long. I'm like, this isn't a LinkedIn post. This is like an intro to a novel. It's like, let's break this down, simplify, edit. Yeah. But like you said, I've worked with some neurodiverse people, like freelancers in the past, and it's just so quicker. It's just like almost seamless. That edit, I don't have to, suggest it. It just kind of comes edited. Yeah. I think it is a real advantage. Yeah,
I definitely something that the more people that I see on LinkedIn that are neurodivergent, the more I start to notice those parallels. And I go, they're really they're not fluffy people. It's very straight to the point. But Twitter's a really good one to teach yourself to be better at that. Like I've just started using Twitter more often, and it's made me realise how much I have to, because you've obviously only got a much shorter amount of space on Twitter. So I'm like, okay, I can be far more succinct than even I am on LinkedIn. Yeah. I've got to really edit down what I'm saying to convey a point without too much information.
It really forces you to get into that habit as well. There's something like, I also look on Twitter to get inspiration for content and structure for LinkedIn, because it's just like so straight to the point. It just cuts the fluff, and I think that's really good advice. This podcast is proudly sponsored by Fabric, a marketing training academy that runs a world-leading master strategy program for marketers looking to excel in their careers. The program teaches you frameworks that have been used by global brands and coaches you how to build a live marketing strategy in just 12 weeks. Now, I personally know many people who have completed Fabric's program and who have benefited directly, from getting promotions and accessing dream job roles to accessing increased marketing budgets and gaining the confidence
confidence to excel in their careers. Fabric is kindly offering listeners of this podcast 10% off their program so you can secure your place on it. For more information, check out the link in the bio. Use code REBELS10 in all capitals to claim the offer.
In terms of your kind of journey with ADHD, where did, let's rewind a little bit, and where did that start? When did you realise?
So I worked with a lady called Alice Stevenson right back at the start, when I first started doing LinkedIn training, and I actually did some ghostwriting for her as well originally. And she's neurodiverse, and I noticed some things that she talked about her neurodiversity that made me go, that feels really familiar to me. And then I saw more people starting to talk about it and the symptoms and the things that they've struggled with, and I was like, oh my God, and so then I started looking into it a little bit more, and I read a blog from a mum who'd been late diagnosed with ADHD, and I was like, oh my God, this is like every single point of this is me. So that's when I started querying it, and I thought I did one of the online tests, and it was like, yeah, pretty conclusive that you have got ADHD and potentially autism as well. And I was like, oh, wasn't expecting that one. So I just left it for a while, and I wasn't really sure if I wanted to pursue a diagnosis, but then I did. I went privately last year, and I've encouraged a few people to do it as well, just for that validation, to understand myself a bit more. I think it is a huge topic at the moment, and it's become such a huge topic that people are rolling their eyes when you bring it up now. Personally, I think there are some people that are amazing advocates for it, and I think their voice is just so beneficial to the world, but there's also people that are allowing it to become their entire identity and forgetting that there is so much more to who they are than this label that's put on them. I think labels are really helpful for us to find each other, and to feel like we're not alone, to have that. But I think it becomes dangerous when, and I mean, this is potentially an unpopular opinion, but I find anybody who completely defines their identity by one aspect, vegans, for example, right? All of support of it. But it's like once you become a vegan, so many of them, it becomes their entire identity. And it's everything that they talk about is in every one of their bios, and they will bring it up at every, and I'm not saying all vegans at all. I've got some amazing vegan friends that would never dream of trying to convert me. I'm vegetarian myself, but it's not something that I really talk about. Yeah. Unless you're sat opposite me at a restaurant and they say, oh, what are you going to go for? And that's when the conversation comes up. CrossFitters, for example, you'll get people make jokes about CrossFitters because it becomes their whole idea. And I'm not against any of these people or the way they live their lives, and I'm not saying that for a second. But I think if you allow one aspect of who you are to become your entire identity, you're going to lose really important parts of who you are as well. And for me, I don't want any of those things I don't want to be defined as a tattooed professional or a LinkedIn influencer or a single mum or a vegetarian. I don't want any of those labels to be entirely define me. I'm a culmination of all those things and so much more.
What would you want people to think when they hear the name Leah Turner?
Oh, good question. I think what it really fundamentally comes down to is I want to make a positive impact on the world. Yeah. And that's not just talking about LinkedIn, that's talking about beyond, like the charity work that I've got involved with. Get a little bit emotional, but my dad passed away when I was 10 from cancer. And when he died, his funeral was held in this really big church that was local. We weren't a religious family, but it was at the local church, and the church was packed. And he was a window cleaner, right? He earned hardly any money. He left school at 14, joined the Navy, had nothing, poor as church mice when we were kids. And he filled that church with people whose lives he'd impacted in some way, even if it was just whistling on his window cleaning round and singing a song and having a cup of tea and a chat with someone. But these people cared about him, and they all felt positively about him. And I was like, if I die and I've got a church with 300 people in it that I've impacted in some small way to help them improve their lives, I've won at life. I've done what I've come here to do. So for me, it's being able to create what my dad did. And my dad did it with no money and no education, but I'm privileged in that now I've got a decent education, not a private school education, but like I did all right at school, and I'm making a good income now. I'm like, okay, so I've got to make that impact. I can't go through life not doing things to help other people. So that's, I hope that ultimately one day that'll be what people think of.
That's a really, really nice way to just approach everything in life. Like leaving that legacy and having that impact on others, more so than tying it down into like tangible. I want to earn this amount of money, or I want to have this amount of things, or I want to go on this many holidays. I love that.
Well, I want to do all of those things as well.
Of course.
I mean, I'm not worried, the yacht can wait, but it would be nice, to be able to go on lots of holidays, and traveling is important to me. But yeah, for me, it's more about the legacy I want to leave is a legacy of having been a good human, raised a good human, and helped other people to be happier, better, earn more money, live a safer life, whatever it might be.
And a big part of that, obviously, recently has been the charity work, which I feel like it's ramped up quite a couple of gears in the last year or so.
Yeah, and thank you for being part of my initiative for that as well, because you sort of returned the favour, didn't you, from my marketing book that I did. That started, oh my gosh, like exactly a year ago. What date is it today? The 21st, 22nd? So it was the 24th of February last year when the Ukraine war broke out. And I saw something on TV, and it was just a mum and her little boy in a train station, huddled refugees. And I just broke my heart. And I tried not to watch the news. I stopped watching the news during COVID because I was like, oh, I can't deal with it. And I saw it and my heart broke, and I just wanted to do something positive. And I knew I had a network that trust me, that pay a lot of money for my services. And I was like, right, do a webinar. And I did a webinar.
Oh, I remember that webinar.
Yeah, and I thought, I'll get a couple of the other LinkedIn experts to join me. And I literally woke up on a Saturday morning, text my mate, and I was like, I'm going to do this thing. And he's like, okay. I was like, I need a charity to donate it to. Do you know, we need to find someone on the ground helping. And he introduced me to Chris Lomas of Hope For. And I just messaged Chris out the blue. I was like, I'm hosting a webinar. I'm going to give you all the money. Don't know how much it's going to be, but I'm hoping to make $5,000. And he was like, oh my God, this is amazing, because they were literally there. And so that morning in bed, still in my pajamas, I logged on, I created a Calendly event on Calendly, linked it all to Zoom, created a landing page. My son's like, I'm hungry. I'm like, I'm saving refugees. And we put it on sale, and within 2 hours we had £2,500. And the money came straight into my Stripe account, and I had the money in my business. So I sent the money directly to Chris, knowing that I would get it in the next week. Instantly. And they were out buying food and supplies, like within a couple of hours of launching it. And it went on to make, we sold 950 tickets. We raised over £40,000 in cash, and then it continued to roll into, we did PR, we sold the webinar, and then we got companies like Bid Food started donating. They'd seen the campaign, and more people became aware of Hope For, and it's gone on to the whole thing. Their estimate made £250,000 in cash donations, food, water, transport, over £250,000. And then I went out to Moldova in January to actually see the work that they're doing, which was really tough. Like, I don't think I've still really processed what I saw out there. But we managed to raise another 15,000 while I was out there. And then the Marketers for Moldova book that you helped 30 articles from 30 marketers, all different areas of marketing. And we made about £4,000 with that as well.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and that's the stuff that feels really good. Also horrible, because like seeing that stuff is not fun, but it was good.
What made you really want to go out there and see it on the
ground?
I
didn't want to go. No. If you'd spoken to anybody like really close to me on the lead up, like I'd gone to my doctor, I got Valium from my doctor because I was so anxious. And I just said over and over, I was like, I don't want to go. Like, I really want to see Chris and I want to see the work that they're doing, but I really don't want to go because I don't know how I'm going to cope with it emotionally. And there were parts of it where like, I had to leave the situation because I was just in floods of tears and I really struggled with it. But I felt a sense of duty because I knew my presence over there would raise more money.
Yeah.
And I knew it would help to motivate me to do more, and to have actually seen what it's really like over there, because it's 80% poverty, and they've still taken 90,000 refugees. 90,000 refugees that they've taken over the border, and people are moaning about the amount we take here. And you're like, that country is 80% poverty, and they've still taken in that many people. We really have no excuse.
Agreed. I think also it shows the power of social media to raise that amount of money so quickly and have such a big impact on the ground. I think that's really a testament to, one, your brand as well, for really helping that take off, but also the power of everyone else as well, like the community spirit. I think it's in times like that, it really illuminates the really positive aspects.
You still get your person that's going, you're just doing it for PR. You're like, yes, I'm definitely going to stick myself in poverty just because I want you. I want the PR for it. Like, yes, I'm definitely leaving my son for 4 days to go to a country where, like, a not war torn, but, you know, just the saddest situation, some of them. Like, that would be I could just go on a TV show or I don't know, change my name legally again, and I could do any sort of PR stunt. Why would I do that if it was for PR? Like, that's a lot of effort to go to.
Yeah, let's talk about the knobheads on LinkedIn.
There's so many.
Because you've been posting for quite a while now, and you are 100% authentically yourself. You show up as you are. There's no kind of filter. You're not trying to please an audience. Obviously, you know, when you're marketing a brand, there's elements that you show.
Yeah, I'd say 90% authenticity. Like, there's still you still got to consider how you respond to things, and sometimes someone might say something to me and I might want to go, fuck off, you knob, but I can't say that because I've got to be professional. Whereas in real life, if someone actually came up to me and said that, I would just be like, you're an absolute dick. Where I can't do that on LinkedIn. So there's 90%.
Did it impact you at the beginning, or, you know, when you got those kind of comments, people disagreeing or being quite rude or making comments about your appearance or whatever else?
Yes, until I realised that I could twist it and use it to my advantage. I think at first I was just, it made me, I've always had pushback, right? I've for most of my adult life, I've been heavily tattooed. And before it was fashionable, before people did it because they wanted to be an OnlyFans model or they wanted to look cool. For me, it was something that I started when I was really young, before you ever would see women with lots of tattoos. So I've always had that kind of, you're a bit different, you're a bit weird. So it wasn't those that really bothered me. The ones that bothered me more was the people that would make inappropriate comments or send me creepy DMs. That was more annoying. But then I realised that I could just edit out their names, post it and use it as hilarious content when I replied to them. And I think my first viral post was a guy who messaged me who was like, so what's your favourite position? And I just put CEO, and
badass move.
And I screenshot it, posted it, and it went like huge, and I was like, oh wow, but I hadn't quite edited his name out completely. I'd meant to, and it was a complete mistake, but I was really quite new to, and I hadn't, so you could vaguely read his name, but I'd blocked him, so I don't know if he ever even knew about it. But it was funny, and that got me a lot of women going, way to handle it, brilliant way. And I went, actually, when I handle it this way, and instead of letting them upset me, I do it with humour, and I use it to also elevate my brand and empower other women. I was like, oh, actually, this works quite well. So while I don't want to do it all the time, throwing one out every now and then, and it also warns other men off from doing it. Because they go, well, I don't want to end up like that, so they just don't challenge me on it. But every time I post something like that, I'll get a load of DMs from women saying, thank you so much, because I've had someone doing like that to me and I didn't know what to say, and now I felt more confident to like combat it and stick up for themselves. I'm like,
I love that.
I mean, you'll always get the guys going, oh, posting one of these again. Like, oh, it's always about how fit you think you are, and all these guys are paying you all the attention. I'm like, it's not really the reason.
You can post about anything on LinkedIn, can't you? And there'll always be an angle that somebody can come at it with in disagreement. It could be the most positive, you know, amazing thing that you've done, and somebody's going to have something negative to say, right?
I had a woman with a bowl cut tell me that my nose rings were ugly, and I was just like, you chose that fringe, love. I mean, I'm really not taking fashion advice from you. I didn't obviously say that. Actually, I think I did say that. I think I replied to her saying something along the lines of, you'll have to excuse me not taking your style tips when you chose that fringe. And I was like, I can say that because I'm not swearing and I'm not outright bullying. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I see it a lot with the clients that we work with, especially female clients. When I log into their account and they have 50 DMs and I go through them, I'm like, Jesus Christ, 5 to 10 of these are just weird, creepy men.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going in and I'm like deleting them and archiving them and getting rid of them before clients see it, because it's not
Luke does that for me
nice
now.
thing to see. What do you think like LinkedIn or any other social media platform can do to help combat that? I know you speak to people at LinkedIn and you're part of a few initiatives.
Yeah, I mean, personally, if it was me, I'd want a 3 strikes and you're out rule.
Mm-hmm.
And I would, and I think, if a guy's sending me a love heart from my profile video, or the hello ma'am, you so sexy people, and you're like, I think if there was just an opportunity to go, right, we'll review it, flagged, breaks the rules. 3 of those, and they get a warning on the last one. You're on your last warning, you lose your account. Mm-hmm. And then they're out. Because I think actually women are, more women than probably we realise, are leaving LinkedIn because they're sick and tired of it.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a real propensity towards taking like photos, posting selfies and showing who you are now, more than there ever was. But I know every time I post a photo, I put a post up on like Monday of me holding a block of cheese, and I got like 50 connection requests from random men in random professions that are nothing to do with me or my industry, sending me connection requests. And I was just like, I know why you're here, and it ain't about the cheese. So it's hard, it's human nature to some extent, but at the same time I do feel like they need to come down harder on people and just make it very clear. If a message is reported and it's upheld, they get an email that says, this is why it's inappropriate, this is why it breaks the rules. If you're caught doing it again, you will have your account suspended permanently. I don't think they'll do it, because I think they'd lose too many accounts on LinkedIn.
There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them, and you never really think that unless you're in the LinkedIn kind of world, you don't see that, and you'd never associate those accounts with a professional platform. Yeah. So I think that almost it makes it even worse, and especially it's mad that so many people have their employer listed by their name, and then will publicly leave a comment that is such a dodgy comment, and it's like what are you doing?
I had a guy lost his job because he sent me a really inappropriate DM. Do you know this story?
No, tell us the story.
So, I can't remember his name now. But this guy sent me a DM, never spoken to him, weren't connected. First thing he sent me was, great tits, Leah, lovely, heart. That was his only message to me. And I didn't actually respond.
Yeah.
I reported the message, and I was like, fucking creep. Like, what a horrible thing to, like, don't do that. Hilariously, his profile photo was a photo of him wearing like a snorkel mask, and it was split, and like his wife was the other half of the photo. She had the other half of the photo. So he's a married man, and he worked for United Utilities. So it's like one of their reps. And LinkedIn came back and said his message hadn't breached their TOS, and I was like, I know at that point, these things don't normally bother me. I don't know what, maybe I was a bit sensitive that day, but I think I'd had a lot of them in a row, and I was just like, for fuck's sake. And I've done the thing that they suggest me do, I do, and it's still come back that this hasn't breached the rules. And I'm sick of this. So I posted it. And I said, LinkedIn, you've just let me down. This message was sent into my inbox, and I didn't cover his name. And I tagged United Utilities. And originally I did actually tag his wife, but I was like, that's probably a shit thing to do, so I untagged her. But ultimately I think she probably needed to know. Probably didn't, from what I could gather, she wasn't an active LinkedIn user. But it became apparent. So United Utilities got in contact and apologised to me. LinkedIn apologised to me. In fact, LinkedIn's head of trust and safety got in contact to apologise to me. And he lost his job as a result of it, because it wasn't his first offence. That's not the only reason. So lots of people from United Utilities were fuming about this, and a few have messaged me and said he's been reported for this before.
Oh, wow.
And he's done this with other people within the company. People have reported that they've been uncomfortable when he's visited their sites, whatever. So although at first I sort of listened to the LinkedIn feedback, people going, you might have cost him his job. He's probably got kids to feed, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, excuse me, what? I don't have to put up with sexual harassment so his children can eat. That's his responsibility, not mine. So I pushed back on that. But yeah, I mean, the post went pretty big. Yeah. And yeah, he lost his job. But I just feel like good, because the next time he's about to sexually harass someone in the workplace or whatever, maybe he'll think twice, and maybe he won't do it because maybe he'll lose his job again. But you don't learn lessons unless you suffer consequences, do you? So I think it's a great story. I think it's a great outcome, and the fact that LinkedIn said it didn't violate their... Yeah, I think that was some massive oversight. They've been a lot better in the ones that I've reported since then. I think they're always saying that they've got these initiatives, but we all know what LinkedIn are like. They'll be focused on taking our pinned feature away or our curious reaction and bringing in starring inboxes instead of actually tackling sexual harassment on the platform. Like, come on. Yeah. We want to be able to organise our inboxes properly. We want the pinned comment feature back, please. And we just want to not be sexually harassed. Please concentrate on those things.
It's not a big ask, LinkedIn. I don't
it's
know
really
not.
Cameras,
but LinkedIn, if you're listening.
Yeah.
But I mean, LinkedIn as a platform's changed massively, hasn't it, in the last 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, people blame me for it. I'm like, I can't take all the credit. I'm sorry. It's really not me.
Blame me for it. They should be celebrating you for it. I think it's such a, overall, I think it's a massively positive change. It's a lot more inclusive, for one thing. It's a lot more diverse, the voices on there.
Yeah. That might just be our little bubble, though.
Yeah,
because there's still like National Tea Party, Trump supporters and anti-abortionists like all over the place. But we don't see that because we've got our own little happy, diverse bubble.
Created a nice little community. No, that's actually a really good point. Echo chambers, they definitely exist.
Yeah.
I had a client, and he's based in the US, and we shared a post on his account, and it got like 72,000 reactions in like 3 days.
Oh my God.
So much so that it was getting queries through his website, people just commenting about the post.
Yeah.
And it was really, really positive for like 2 or 3 days, and then within the space of an hour there was thousands of really negative comments, and I think it hit like the Trump audience, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
And you'd go on their profile and you'd just know instantly, if like someone's a weirdo when you go on their profile and you see the image and like, here's another one. And he was getting hate comments, death threats via website, and it's insane how like social media can just switch like that.
I remember doing a post around Pride Month, talking about my personal allyship to the LGBTQ plus community, and I watched it go around the world. So in the UK, it was all really supportive content in the mornings, and then around after lunch, it hit an American crowd, and it had gone beyond my own existing network, who had context to who I was and my story and who I am as a person. And it hit that like conservative American audience, Republican audience. And then it was like all of this God stuff. And I was like, okay. And then it was places like, and I'm not generalizing, but obviously there are different cultures around being LGBTQ plus in places like Uganda and Nigeria, and you get that audience coming through. South Africa, it's anti-God, you're going to hell, all of this. And I was like, wow, this is really intense. Then it hit Australia, and it was all positive again. And like that side of the world was all positive again. And it was just really interesting as like a culture experiment. Obviously not for the LGBTQ plus community to see it, and that's always hard when you're standing up for a cause you believe in, to know that that's potentially then going to create negativity that they're seeing. It's always like, do I say anything? Because there's going to be good and bad come from this. But to watch it travel around the world like that was like, wow, that's really interesting to see the different places that was showing up in the comments. People from and it was really specific places that really surprised me.
Yeah, I can imagine. 'Cause you forget when you post something that technically you're sharing this post, but it's going to anyone, anywhere.
Yeah, when
can
it
see
reaches
that.
past your own following.
Yeah.
And that's usually when you start getting the nastiness, because you go past your first degree connections and the people that follow you. And if that gets enough engagement, it then goes out organically to their network. And you start like getting people that will make a snap judgment on who you are as a person based on your picture or whatever you said in that one isolated post. And you're like, yeah, but you don't know anything else about me. So you're just judging me on this one isolated thing that you're making all these aggressive comments. And obviously your own network has a huge amount of context to who you are. So don't jump to those conclusions. You're like, what? But that's when you have to remember that you can't take their opinions on board because they don't know really who you are. They only know this little tiny snapshot. So you just have to kind of brush those ones off.
It's interesting. For any listeners who are watching this who are actively on LinkedIn, what advice would you give someone starting out now?
I think the first thing is actually, if you want to have an impact on LinkedIn, make sure your profile is fully optimized, all of the different areas of your profile, because if you're trying to get clients, you've got to have your profile done. It's your own website essentially, where people can, whether it's a job or the clients you're trying to get, it's like where people can really find out who you are as a person, what your skills are, what you've got to offer other people. But trying to create a community of people that help you to feel safe and encouraged. And your comment sections, my comment sections are full of those people, full of those really nurturing, supportive, encouraging, want to see you win kind of people. That will help you. And I don't mean like creating an engagement pod. I just mean start engaging with those people. They'll start noticing you and engaging in return, and you'll start feeling welcome and more encouraged to post because it just feels like talking to friends.
Yeah.
And I think that helps to bring people out their shell. And don't overthink it. People assume they need to write an essay that sounds super corporate. It's got to be some sort of like professional white paper for you to post on LinkedIn. It's like, no, tell me about your day. Give me a few facts about who you are. Show me how you relax. Talk about something funny that happened to you this week. It doesn't have to be an essay on how much you know about X, Y, Z. It can be, sometimes I just post what I've got scheduled for the day and make a funny comment with it and put a picture, and like, people engage and I have a conversation like I would around the coffee bar at the office in the morning,
Yeah, I think something that we've noticed as well in the agency is a lot of people just love watching the journey and people documenting the journey just because it makes, one, it's relatable content, it's aspirational content if somebody's a few steps ahead of where you are, and it just humanises the workplace and working life, which I think for so long we've made a very clear distinction between work and life and personal and work. I feel like that boundary's been blurred a bit in quite a
COVID
positive.
did that completely, didn't it?
Yeah.
Because suddenly we had people from work in our living rooms. It's like, oh, my CEO is seeing my child run around naked in the background of my Zoom. Sorry about that. And the CEO is like, it's fine. And his 4-year-old swings naked in the background. You're like, this is a level of bonding I wasn't expecting with my boss. But it really does. It has leveled the playing field for a lot of us and made us all realise. That's why I love LinkedIn. I've worked with everyone from like multi-millionaire business owners with like £100 million businesses, exited founders, to people who, they're VAs and they're just at the beginning of their journey and they're doing my digital resources, and they talk to one another and they're in my community, like having conversations and helping one another, and you're like, this is so cool to be able to level that playing field like that. You can't access everyone, but you can access a lot of people on LinkedIn.
Yeah, 100%. Where do you want to take your current brand and business in the future? Do you have like a 3, 5, 10 year plan, or are you kind of taking it week by week?
I mean, up to this point I've really winged it, but this year I've started to put a bit more structure in place. So I'm working on a new digital course. I've got my business community, so I host masterclasses and LinkedIn clinics, and we have this community of 200 people now who that's like a paid membership, and I love it. And they're so amazing. Everybody in there is so supportive. It's better than I ever imagined it would be. I've stopped one-to-one training now. And I'm focusing a lot on doing corporate training and speaking events. So I'm booking quite a few speaking jobs. I've got my first international one.
Is that in Denver?
I'm going to Denver, Colorado, yeah.
That's amazing.
Which is mad. And I'm doing a Tomicon as well, which is quite exciting because it's quite a big one. I have got a plan in the back of my head, but I'm not really ready to talk about it yet. But it will be something that I'm growing that's not just me, and something that has value beyond just my brand, because I can't sell me and I can't exit me. So I need to start building around that brand and beyond that brand, so that there is something bigger that I can work on, which is all scary, but also exciting. And I think I'm ready for a new challenge. So
I love that. That sounds really exciting. Like there's a lot of different kind of plates you're spinning and juggling at the moment.
Yeah, the business community kind of that's all well automated. So I just go in every day and answer questions and then invite guests to host things for me. So that works really well, and so many of them support one another as well.
Yeah.
But the digital course, that's a albatross around my neck at the moment, because every time I sit down to film, I've got the decorators in the house, or I lose my voice, or then it's my son's half term. I'm like, oh my God, I just need to get the filming done. But yeah, it will work out. It'll be good. And it's the most comprehensive thing I've ever created. It's like 70 videos.
Wow.
Which is intense.
I bet there's a lot of value in that. A lot.
Yeah, they're all short videos because because I've got ADHD, I make things as if everybody's got it. So it's like short, bite-sized chunks. And then obviously as LinkedIn update things, I can cut in a different video with updated information without having to re-record a 30-minute video. And they can sort of jump around and revisit things if they need an update, which I think is going to be really, really valuable for everybody.
100%. And you mentioned as well the house, and you've got builders in at the moment. And I saw the Metro article talking about that, which I think really it was quite inspiring, obviously to read. And it was obviously written in a Metro way, like you said earlier. It's marketed particular aspects of your brand and identity, but if you actually go back like 5-10 years in your life, how different does it look compared to today?
I mean, 10 years ago, I was off my tits on mushrooms, dancing around on a full moon party on a Thai beach.
As you do.
Living my best life. And now I'm I wouldn't have even believed that I'd be a mother back then. When I had my son, we moved 6 times in 6 years. Like we were moved from pillar to post constantly, not through our own fault. I was always a very good tenant, but landlord wanted a house back. There was a slug infestation, there was a broken boiler, like all these different problems. So being able to create a business that during COVID, I had no savings before that. I saved my deposit for my house during COVID as a result of the LinkedIn business. And now the business is like hurtling towards nearly £1 million turnover in 3 years, which is outrageous.
Amazing.
Considering I was a minimum wage earner. I think 2019 I earned about £18,000, and now that's like not even, I make more than that a month. So there's nothing that I never would have believed you. I never would have believed that I'd be well known on social media, because the idea would have made me throw up with anxiety. It's just never something I would have wanted for myself, but now I have it. I feel like a sense of responsibility. I definitely wouldn't have ever imagined myself being able to buy a house. I just thought that was just never going to happen, and I was okay with it, but it gave me I never could feel secure in our houses. It was always like, well, I wonder how long we'll be here for. So now that I've chosen to move up to the north and set down roots, and my son's in an incredible school, he's got lots of lovely friends, and it's just I get quite emotional whenever I think about it too much, because it's like I never would have believed I'd be able to have all of that. It's more than I'd ever dared to dream of.
I think that's a nice way to end the podcast. I've got a couple of questions before we go.
Okay.
Firstly, where can people find you?
Look for Leah Rainbow Turner on LinkedIn. I've got the rainbow emoji, so you'll find me there. leahturner.co.uk for all my services, products, freebies, other podcasts, video interviews and all that, if you've not heard enough of me.
Instagram?
Leah does Instagram. Yeah, I'm quite active on Instagram and Twitter now, and both are Leah does LinkedIn. Leah without the H.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
I've got all the details of all my communities and different offers on the website.
Perfect. We'll drop all the links below as well. But at the end of every episode, I'm going to be asking all my guests a question.
Okay.
So the question is, what is a strong or unpopular opinion, belief, view that you hold that potentially could get you cancelled?
It's a really hard one. So I don't feel like I have any thoughts that would get me cancelled. I think an unpopular opinion, and I guess this is probably going to be unpopular to you, is I think there is, and I'm guilty of it because I've done ghostwriting for people as well, but I think the huge amount of personal branding that talk about you've got to be authentic, and it's like, well, you can't be authentic. There's no way to be an authentic person if somebody else is writing your content. You might get your own story, but it's not really coming from you. Because if you're dyslexic, they're not writing with mistakes. If you're like super excitable, they're not about something, they're not going to get that genuine emotion. So I think, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be done, but I think there's too much of a conversation around being authentic. It's like there's nothing wrong with paying someone to create your content and write your story, but you can't do that and then claim you're being authentic. And I think I would prefer if there was more transparency around who's using a ghostwriter. I have someone who writes my newsletters for me, Amy Elliott. She's incredible, and I talk publicly and I celebrate her, and I'm like, she is amazing, she encompasses my voice, I tell her everything that's gone on, she turns it into my newsletter, and I feel like I'm being authentic because I'm being transparent. But if you're using a ghostwriter and pretending that you don't use a ghostwriter, you're being completely inauthentic, because everyone perceives that as you, but it's not really you. And it's not really you in the comment sections and replying to people. You can't talk about community and authenticity if you're hiring somebody to do all of your interactions for you and pretend to be you. Because like Luke identifies himself in my DMs when he's speaking to somebody, and he's not me for me. Hey, it's Luke.
Yeah.
Can I help you? So I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I just think that there's a real clash in the two concepts. If you're paying a ghostwriter, you're not being authentic. There's a disconnect there.
I love that. And on that note, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. And
Thanks for having me.
thanks for listening.
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to Rebels podcast with me, Shoaib Ahmed. If you've been watching us on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you've been listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, then please give us a 5-star rating and a follow. The more successful this podcast gets, the bigger and better guests we can have on in the future. Thank you.